The night was thick with mist as young Eleanor and her brother, Thomas, hurried home through the winding lanes of Kingskerswell. The village was already bathed in the dim glow of candlelight from the cottages, and the church bell had long since tolled for the evening. Their father had given them strict instructions to return before dark, but time had slipped away in the excitement of playing by the river. As they finally reached their home, the weight of dread settled in their stomachs, knowing what awaited them inside. Their father, a stern man with a heavy brow, stood in the doorway, his arms crossed over his chest. "You are late," he said in a voice that held both anger and disappointment. "You know better than to be out past dusk." Eleanor opened her mouth to explain, but their father cut her off. "No excuses. Off to bed. Now." The two children climbed the wooden staircase in silence, their father's voice ringing in their ears. They changed into their nightclothes, each lost in thought. As Eleanor blew out the bedside candle, darkness wrapped around them like a thick shroud. Thomas, already half asleep, mumbled something incoherent and turned to the wall. That was when it happened. A sudden flickering light danced across the room, illuminating the walls in a wavering glow. Eleanor's breath caught in her throat as she turned toward the source. There, standing at the foot of her bed, was a woman dressed in a flowing white shroud, holding a candle that seemed to burn without wax or wick. The light was unnatural, golden yet cold, casting long, shifting shadows. Eleanor wanted to scream, but the sound caught in her throat. The woman's face, pale as moonlight, held an eerie familiarity. Then it struck her. This was her mother. The same gentle eyes, the same soft lips that had once sung her lullabies before sickness had taken her away. Thomas stirred and sat up, his eyes widening in horror. Mother," he whispered. The ghostly woman lifted a finger to her lips, bidding them silence. She looked at Eleanor with something close to sorrow before turning and gliding toward the door. The children watched in stunned silence as she drifted through the hallway, her candle casting its unnatural glow on the wooden floorboards. Then, with slow and deliberate steps, she moved toward their father's room. The door, which had been shut, creaked open by some unseen force. The children, frozen with fear and curiosity, clambered to the doorway just in time to see the spirit pass through the threshold. Their father, still seated at his writing desk, looked up. His face went white, his eyes wide with something neither Eleanor nor Thomas could name. For a long moment, the room was silent except for the sputtering of the oil lamp. Then, just as suddenly as she had appeared, the ghostly woman faded into nothingness, her candlelight vanishing like a dying star. The room was plunged into darkness. The next morning, their father said nothing about the night before. He moved about the house with an unusual quietness, his normally sharp voice subdued. The children dared not mention what they had seen, afraid that speaking of it would make it too real. But something had changed. Their father no longer raised his voice at them, no longer scolded them with the same iron will, and, more curiously, he began keeping his bedroom door locked at all times. The ghost of their mother never appeared again, but her presence lingered in the house like a whisper. On some nights, Eleanor thought she could hear the faint rustling of fabric, or catch the distant scent of lavender, her mother's favorite perfume. Years later, long after the house had changed hands and new families had moved in, whispers of a woman in white continued to surface. Some said she was a guardian spirit, watching over those who lived within the old home. Others claimed she was searching for something left unfinished, a final message undelivered. But Eleanor and Thomas knew the truth. Their mother had returned for one last visit, not to frighten, not to haunt, but to remind their father of a promise long forgotten. Many thanks for treading this tale's dark path. If its chill gripped you, follow, subscribe, and comment below.